All right, here we are. Friends of Jay. What's up, man?
Jeff, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good. I was thinking, friends, FOJ, right? Friends of Jeff, but really it could be just FOJ, Friends of Jay, and J for Jeff, J for Jay, anything like that.
It's just, hey,
What do you think?
we're just friends, man. Be friends
Yeah,
of, be friends of anything.
Well, your friend
But,
is up in he went north of the wall. He's currently in Canada, up in Ottawa right now.
How is
People
Canada
kept telling
right
me,
now?
hey,
How
throw
cold
another
is
trip
it?
on the Barbie,
Yeah, right.
it's not bad.
How?
It's 23 degrees at the moment, Fahrenheit, because everything's Celsius here.
Okay.
Getting down, I think tomorrow will be a little bit colder, probably 15, 17. So I was expecting much colder based on what everyone was telling me. It's been fine. And I only have to walk a block from the hotel to what I'm doing here. So not a big deal. It's fine.
Well, I can report to you that here in Plainfield, Illinois, it is a balmy 13 degrees, and it feels like 5 right now. So yeah, it's cold.
January heat wave.
Yeah. Although we are supposed to hit mid-30s on a Thursday, so we'll come out of it hopefully. But yeah,
Congratulations on that.
It's flipping cold here, man.
Well, back home, we had a little of a cold snap over the weekend, and I got to tell you, I had a just shitty weekend.
Yeah,
First of all,
talk to me.
the South. Yeah, it was crazy. So the
Well,
South is ill prepared for anything to do with cold weather for obvious reasons. You don't spend money on something that happens every once in a while. But we got some snow in North Carolina up in the mountains, and there was ice and snow, and there was no plowing, no salting, no brine on the on the road. All the stuff you come to expect, right? As Chicagoan, like, okay, yeah, that's like no brainer stuff. None of that took place.
Well, talk to
so
me
that was
about
that.
in our text exchange how you wound up with a car in the ditch.
Yeah, man, I'm getting there. You're spoiling it for me. So I go out Saturday morning, right? And I go out, very mundane errand of going to pick up some pants that I needed to get altered, right? They were supposed to be done. I drive all the way out there, a whole 15 minutes or whatever it takes to get there. And the roads are city, but fine, like any of the main streets. Our road was the worst by far, like just because it hadn't been plowed or treated or anything like that. And of course I get there and they're closed. Like, sorry. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's that. Go back home. And this is a recurring theme in North Carolina is you get below freezing and even just the whiff of snow and everything shuts down.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Like, you see it on the news all the time and you look down south like, oh, Atlanta got an inch of snow and, everything's still crawl and they close school for like a week. All that stuff.
Yeah,
it's absolutely true. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. My sister has reported that many times. She said they got their first measurable amount of snow in like 7 years. So, yeah. She says whenever it happens, it's like, oh my God, Armageddon is on its way. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, they were predicting like between 1 and 8 inches for us on Friday, like into Saturday. And I think we got maybe a quarter of an inch. Like, it was not a lot, where we were.
Yeah.
Which might go get whatever. So I go up. I come back and, I've got my brand new vehicle and I have a very long driveway. I want to say it's probably 300, 400 feet, something along those lines. And it's a steep incline to get up to the house.
Okay.
And I'm driving up and it's a single lane that kind of goes up, kind of a cut path through a forest, essentially. It's very private. Love it.
Okay.
It's great. I go and I drive and everything's fine. I get up to the top of the hill, kind of almost to where my driveway or my garage is. And then all of a sudden I start to spin. Went, oh, that's not good. And then I start to slide backwards. Like, oh shit.
Oh.
So I end up sliding backwards down my driveway. And my driveway has like these concrete kind of rails that kind of go on the side to kind of, let you know when you've strayed from the path.
Yeah.
And that is the only reason that I stayed on the driveway itself instead of crashing to a tree or rolling down basically a hill into the forest in my car. So I'm like, oh, shit. So I slide back down and I basically went, okay, well, that's not happening. Can't do that again. And, I'm in my new vehicle and I'm like, I just got the rims fixed from the other thing I had. So, fortunately, no damage, just like, torn up kind of dry, like snow. And I actually did leave like the driving for a little bit, so not a big deal, whatever, right? So I'm like, okay, so I walk up the hill, which isn't fun in the winter. And then go inside. I'm like, all right, well, hey, we're not going anywhere today. The streets aren't treated and our driveway's a mess. That's on us. We should have probably had some salt or something like that. But whatever.
Sure.
So like, all right, well, we're not going anywhere. So I go out. I'm like, well, at least start to clear the driveway and stuff like that. Start to shovel and stuff like that. And we have no salt because why would we? We're in North Carolina. We don't need salt.
Do you own a shovel?
I do. I have. That was the one. The one thing we took with us for Chicago. I actually left my electric snowblower, which I loved. That thing was a beast. I had one of those ego powered, like 248 like Tony Stark reactor batteries.
Yeah. No,
and that
I know
thing
what
was
you're
awesome,
talking about.
man. I whipped it out, and it was kick ass.
Yeah.
We left it at the house. The guy bought it from us. Who bought our house? So I had just a shovel. I'm like, all right, shovel. And this sucks. And at this point, it's like ice, and so you really can't do anything with it. So I'm like, all right, well, we need some salt. So, well, my car's already down at the bottom of the hill, so I'm just gonna go ahead and, go get some salt because I didn't have any problems getting up into the house and stuff like that in our street.
Yeah.
I should have just turned around because I took a step down. And of course, what do I fall? I slip on the ice. I land on my shoulder, which is already in bad shape. All right, what's slippers now? So I all right, well, let me keep going. Get down to the bottom of the hill. Get in my car. Back up slowly into our drive, like the neighborhood kind of drive right there.
Yeah.
And as soon as I put it into drive, I'm done backing up. I immediately start to slide down the hill. I'm like, stand. So I'm sliding, and now I'm like steering to the right, like aiming for like the right-hand side curb and kind of like where our neighbor's property would line up and just kind of like get up on that grass. So I just stop sliding. Like, whatever. But I'm not getting up on that grass because it's a little bit too steep and it's too slippery. And now I'm sliding, and there's rocks that are coming up where it's kind of like a little stream that kind of like runs underneath the driveways and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm like, again, in my brand new vehicle, I'm like, I do not want to fuck up the bottom of my car running over these rocks and falling off the street. So now I'm like, okay, well, let me go all hard left and try to get to the other side of the street and steer into that ditch, which I successfully did. I was able to get across, totally slid down into the ditch. And that was another one where I slid probably for maybe 500 yards down the road.
Oh man.
And once you get sliding on that, it's a steep incline. It's not like it's not like you can just stop and hit the brakes.
Yeah.
So I slide off into the ditch, and I miss some trees. I'm like, I can't even open my driver's door because I'm like too far tipped over, and like there's trees and just stuff, right? So I get out of the, I'm like, fuck. So I faced him. I was like, yeah, we're definitely going anywhere. I'm in the ditch down the road. She's like, what? And I'm like, all right. So let me get out. I have to get out the driver's side, the passenger side, and then trudge back up back in the house. I'm like, all right, well, that's whatever. I'm like, okay, well, now my car's in the ditch. It's Saturday, and I've already had two, let's call them what they are, near-death experiences of me trying to drive in the southern snow with no treated roads down the mountain.
Sure.
So then, I get on the phone with AAA and trying to find tow truck. We have sheriffs and stuff like that that will also help with that. Call them. Like, all right, that information, we'll call you back. And Saturday, police, one of the patrol guys calls me, and he's like, hey, I know exactly where you're at. Like, those roads are too bad, man. We can't get up there. You're going to have to is it an emergency? Because otherwise I just suggest you kind of wait it out. I'm like, all right, yeah, I totally get it. Right. First world problem. My car is in the ditch. It's not like I need it that second, right? Whatever. And I'm fine. Like, there's no, other than me falling on the ice, that was about the only street. And then the tow truck company calls me. He's like, yeah, we tried to get up there and we couldn't get up the hill either. I'm like, all right, well, so I guess we're not getting my car Saturday. And then finally Sunday rolls around, it gets a little bit warmer, but the roads still haven't been treated. But the end of a very long story is Sunday night. You and I usually record around 8 p.m. and I had been waiting for a tow truck since 5 p.m. Sunday. They finally show up around 7:45, 8 o'clock, I think.
Oh, wow.
It's a flatbed. And, he's like, and I don't think this guy was a pro. I think he just kind of drove the truck and just kind of like knew the basics.
Yeah.
So there, we're trying to figure it out. And then it's like, all right, well, what's our plan of attack here? Because it was too far off the side of the road and too steep of an angle to kind of do whatever. And plus the traction still sucked because the road still was icy and messy. And you're still on an incline. So he ends up turning around and backing up the flatbed, backs the flatbed up to my car, lowers down the winch. And that was the whole thing, trying to figure out, okay, where the heck is my tow hook? Because it's somewhere in the car.
Yeah,
so
right.
Getting that figured out. So we get that, get the ticket. He attaches the winch. I'm like, all right, well, how about this? And he's about to give up and be like, we're not going to be able to get this. We're going to have to call someone else or whatever. And I'm like, no, I got to fly to Canada tomorrow. I'm like, I don't want to leave my wife with this and leave my car out here for yet another day on the side of the road. So like, let's try this. Like, you winch me up and I'll turn my wheel as hard as I can to the right, just so I can, not snap the wheels. Cause he literally wanted to just drag it the way it was. I'm like, dude, you gotta snap the wheels, they do that.
Yeah.
So I turn and finally, he's winching, he gets me up and out, and I drive off onto the flatbed. He pulls me up, and then he's like, all right, well, where do you want to go? He's like, do you want me to, first I'm like, well, just take me back to my driveway and I'll just kind of park there. But at this point, like, the weather still sucked. I'm like, I'm just going to slide back down again. I'm like, just drive me down to the bottom of the hill and I'll just park down there and walk back up. So that's what I ended up doing. And then, moral of the story is city ice in the south, no salt, no de-icing, and now a neighborhood group me thread of very angry people of not understanding why our driveway was not salted and plowed and stuff like that I have not yet weighed in on, but I was like, what the fuck, man?
Wow.
So that was my Sunday. And of course we missed our recording, and then all my flights on Sunday ended up getting canceled anyway. So I got pushed to Monday, and that's kind of why I was there Sunday doing that stuff. But yeah. And then I roll into Ottawa about 2 a.m. this morning, which is Tuesday, because of delays. And dude, I got nothing but first world problems. My luxury electric vehicle slid into a ditch. Took me a couple days to get it out. And then, my flights to Ottawa, which I had to make 2 connections, one in New York, another one in Toronto. And then my flight from Toronto to Ottawa, which was supposed to leave at 11 p.m. last night, didn't leave till midnight. And I'm sitting in the plane, and, there's 3 chairs, and this couple sits next to us. And between the 3 of us, it's very clear that we do not fit, all 3 of us, into this row. I'm going to mostly blame them, and I know I've put on some weight, but there was definitely crowding of personal space, and they had a baby with them that probably was 1.5 years, maybe 2 years old. And they're playing with the baby, and of course the baby's crying and whining, and then starts bouncing on the lap. And so every time the guy next to me with his kid is bouncing, he's elbowing me in the ribs with this entire thing. And I've never been so glad to stand up at the end of a flight and just like, I need space, man, because like I'm literally I'm in the aisle and I'm still like pushed into the aisle almost the entire flight. Just sucked, man. Just sucked.
Yeah, that's quite the adventure, man. Because I got to tell you, all I did all weekend was watch football and watch football. So not nearly as exciting as what you had going, for sure.
Well, I missed the game last night. I was in Toronto, and apparently YouTube TV doesn't work in Canada, so that kind of sucks. So I couldn't watch the game. I did get kind of like little snippets here and there, and it looks like, and this is what I read from the stats. Basically, that's all I knew was it seemed like Sam Darnold didn't have a great game, and he got sacked a lot, and the Rams just played a good but not great game, and they beat the pants off of Minnesota. Is that fair?
Yeah, I watched most of it. Sam Darnold looked very, I guess you could say, ordinary last night. He had some moments of New York Jets Sam Darnold and some moments of Carolina Panthers Sam Darnold, as opposed to Minnesota Vikings Sam Darnold. And as we know, there's a very stark difference between the Vikings Darnold and the other two. But he got sacked 9 times, and I believe that that ties a playoff record, if I'm not mistaken. And they weren't all his fault. I know Aikman was really on him for hanging onto the ball too long, and boy, do we in Chicago know how that is. But he had a rough game. He looked like he was kind of out of his element, and that was kind of the second game in a row he struggled with. I know he didn't play very well against Detroit going into the playoffs, and really kind of makes you wonder what his status in Minnesota might be going forward. Because I know, the popular opinion was to keep him because he's only there on a 1-year deal. But now you kind of got to wonder what they're going to do going forward. Because, I know, were they the favorites in the NFC? Probably not. I know I thought that they would maybe roll through because they were playing so well, but now I don't know. I just don't know what they're going to do with him. You got McCarthy waiting in the wings, and I gotta think there's
who's the real Sam Darnold, right? Is it the one who played for the Jets in Carolina for all those different years, or is it the 14 games that he played with Minnesota this year?
Well, that's the question, right? That's usually what you think, and that's the question we had about Jaden Daniels earlier. It's like, is it the system or is it the quarterback, right? Is it the coach? Is it the quarterback? Obviously Kevin O'Connell, regarded as one of the better offensive coaches in football, able to turn around Sam Darnold. If they move on from Sam Darnold, you have to think there's going to be teams interested in him, I would think.
Do you think how much? I think yes, but as a starter, I don't know.
Well, again, it depends on what teams we're talking about. I could see him starting in Vegas, maybe Cleveland. These teams, you saw, I don't know if you saw this, but Deshaun Watson's going to be gone for another year.
That's a great story. I love that one.
That is the classic story of karma's a bitch, man.
Yep.
If he, obviously with his massage parlor stories, and now he continues to tear his ACL in rehab over and over again. So sorry, Deshaun, but
my understanding is he's supposed to be wearing a walking boot. How do you roll your ankle if you're in a walking boot? And there's video, question. I guess, of him dancing with his wife on the side of the road. And he's pretty clearly not wearing a walking boot. So yes, karma is a bitch, but I think this may end up giving Cleveland a way out of that contract,
which would be outstanding for them because I know they still owe him a ton of money. So,
this is like a $90 million contract.
Yeah,
I know it's not more. It was like $200 million, or whatever. But there's like incentives and I think out clauses, and this could save them like $90 million.
Yeah, which would obviously be great for them because then they can move on and do whatever they need to do to just become a better team. Because they got that contract hanging over their heads, and obviously that's a lot of money committed to a guy that doesn't see the field. So we'll see. Yeah. But as far as Darnold, no doubt. But as far as Darnold goes, I think it depends on which teams are interested in him. I think he's proven he could start in this league. I think he's played well enough. And I think there are obviously going to be some teams out there that could use him. It's just a question, does Minnesota hang on to him?
Is he a system quarterback and benefiting from whatever Minnesota put around him this year compared to what he's had in the past? Like, what's the secret sauce here? What's the reason why he had such a successful season, barring the last couple of games where he kind of stuck it up, but he did have success. And that, is it?
Yeah. He made the Pro Bowl.
Is skill?
He's got
to execute, but do you see him as a gunslinger or is he a system quarterback? We've had this conversation about other quarterbacks in the league, but I don't know if he's definitely not a gunslinger. I think he is more of that system quarterback at this point.
No, I think he's, you think of a gunslinger, you think of Baker Mayfield, you think of guys who, just throw Justin Herbert's another one, and I'll get to him in a second. But, as far as Darnold goes, he probably is more of a system guy, but he proved he could be a very successful system guy. He's a guy probably pretty easy to coach. He's not going to, cause any problems. It's obvious the Vikings locker room loves him. So, I could see him maybe staying one more year with, McCarthy kind of having another year maybe on the bench, but being active, being able to practice, being able to, actively participate as opposed to just rehabbing his knee. But long term, I don't know what is in the cards for Sam Darnold. I hope it works out for him. Seems like a great guy, played well, deserves a chance, I think, somewhere, but, we'll see what happens.
So he was drafted 3rd overall by the Jets a few years back, right?
Yes.
Is that what is a system quarterback what you're looking for at the 3rd overall pick?
Obviously not.
I'd say no.
No.
Right? So is he a bust?
I still think he's a bust. Yes. Because the success he had is not with the team that drafted him. So if you don't have success with the team that drafts you, I think you're a bust no matter what happens to you. If you're able to
after that.
Yeah,
or the
exactly.
team after that.
Right. So if you are able to resurrect your career somewhere, that's great, but you're still a bust by, in regards to the team that drafts you.
So how much money do you think he cost himself with these last 2 performances?
Well, I mean, what does the average starting quarterback in the NFL go for? 40 million, 35 million?
I think that's the high end. The high end is like 50 million, but I don't know what the average might be. But
maybe 30. Maybe 30, 35. But
what would you pay per year? Let's just do it because that's easiest, right? 50 is like, I think 50 is like you're talking.
50, you're talking. That's what
San Diego.
That's what Justin Herbert makes. That's what Mahomes makes. That's
right.
what
exactly.
That's what Aaron Rodgers made at the height of his career. That kind of thing. That's
what would you pay for Sam Darnold per year?
What would I pay for Sam Darnold if he was starting?
Because right now he's making about $10 million. It looks like he's on a 1-year $10 million deal with Minnesota.
Okay, well, I think he has enough to go out there, and if somebody wants him as a starter, I would still think he could come close to doubling that.
So you're thinking someone will pay $20 million a year on average for him?
In the right situation, yes. Do I think it will happen? No, I don't.
Yeah, I think he stays in Minnesota. I think that's still the best position for him. And
I think that's probably the best thing for him to do. It's just a matter of what the Vikings decide. Do they flip-flop and put Darnold as the backup to McCarthy? Or do they let the two of them come to camp and, kind of quote unquote battle it out? And does it become like a Kirk Cousins situation? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, in the good old days when you drafted somebody, they sat on the bench for a couple of years and learned, right. from the incumbent. That doesn't happen anymore, right? You draft a quarterback, there's an expectation that they're going to play almost right away. So what happens now is, McCarthy's hurt. He's going to be coming off an injury. So do you want to, have him take his time coming back, knowing that he's potentially got a safety valve in Sam Darnold? And then is Sam Darnold open to being that mentor type, knowing he's still relatively young and could potentially go out and, compete for a starting position somewhere else? Is he going to be open to being that mentor, knowing that his heir apparent is already on the team and he's just a placeholder?
Well, I think if you're Sam Darnold and the Vikings don't commit to you as the starter, I think you owe it to yourself based on the year that you just had to at least test free agency, right?
And I think the market, for sure.
Yeah, and I think the Vikings would understand that. what's best for Sam Darnold, probably, like you said, staying there. Because who knows what he's going to look like for a different coach and a different system. With potentially not as good as a core around him. I mean, you don't just go out and find Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are three. I mean, that's a pretty nice three-headed monster to be throwing to. Not every team has that. So I think it's a lot to ask of Sam Darnold to be able to duplicate what he did this year anywhere else. It's got to be the right
definitely
system.
if he goes anywhere else. I mean, the other, and let's think about the options he's got on the table, right? Obviously, you can stay at the Vikings, but the Raiders are looking for a quarterback. They're a team that's kind of in disarray. Who knows what their head coach situation is going to be like? You got the Steelers, who have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. There's the Dolphins, but who was the starter there? You got the Giants, who needs everything.
Yeah, the Giants
could he end up going back to the Jets? I mean, Aaron Rodgers may or may not be there.
Could. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of other teams. Like I said, Cleveland's always looking for somebody. You think they're going to come back with Jameis Winston next year? I don't know. New Orleans, maybe? Do you think New Orleans is committed to Spencer Rattler going forward? I know he's young. He's a draft pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think Stafford's going to retire out of L.A. Well, depending on what they do in the playoffs. But, obviously the Niners have Purdy and the Falcons are taken care of. And, everybody else in the NFC North is taken care of. So, yeah, I don't know. There's some options out there for Darnold, but not a ton, So,
yes, right.
We'll see.
And he's got to be open potentially if he's not a starter.
Right.
He's got decisions to make because he's 27. He's got, theoretically another 5 to 10 years of football, depending on how long he wants to stick around.
Right.
So, and I think this is where you get personality and ego, right? And kind of the competitive spirit that a lot of players have. We were kind of talking about this today is like, well, why aren't more quarterbacks, willing to be mentors? Like, well, not everybody's a teacher.
Right.
You have to have that mentality. It's like you've been fighting your whole life to be a starter, and now you're being told you're not good enough, and you're going to sit on the bench.
Yeah, you're going to sit on the bench, and oh, by the way, we need you to help the guy that's replaced you.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
I think it takes a special breed to do that, right? I mean, there's plenty of players who I think they eventually realize that they are not going to be a starter, and they have to kind of accept that backup role and whatever it is. But do you want a quarterback that is accepting that?
You look at guys, I mean, there's two examples of that I can think of the league right now. One of is Kirk Cousins, and the other one has been doing it for a couple years now in a couple different places is Joe Flacco. I mean, he had a great career as a starter for a long time in Baltimore, and now he's kind of bounced around in Cleveland, and I think he's with Indianapolis now. But he's kind of just that guy who's, yeah, if you need me, I'll play and I'll do my thing and give you what I can. But yeah, he's a mentor for sure. So I think you come to a time
that mindset. I think that's the issue is the mindset of like you embrace that role, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's a love of the game thing too. Because like if you're into it and you're like competitive and you're like, I'm going to play till I'm not going to play anymore. And then are you willing to be a coach, right? Another voice to groom, the next generation. Do you think Peyton Manning would ever be a backup quarterback somewhere or Tom Brady?
No, I don't think either one of their egos would let them. I really don't.
I think the same thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but
no, there's nothing wrong with that.
They're not clipboard holders.
No, but I think it takes a really mentally strong dude to be able to recognize that, you know what, I might not be good enough to play every day, every week anymore, but I can still help this team. I can help the quarterback who is going to play get ready to play, help him see what he's going to see, help him understand all the concepts and all the things that come with it. If that allows me to help the team, then I'm willing to do it. And not everybody can do that, but I think there are guys out there who can. So,
And I'm with you. I think altruistic would be like, yeah, everyone should be like that. But the realist is that doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
Imagine Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, hell no.
Being a backup quarterback, like, no, fuck that. He's going to be off doing ayahuasca and trying to figure out how to, trip you and sprain your ankle so he can play.
Yeah. No, it's the old adage of know your role. As long as you know your role and understand your role, then you'll be fine. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Guess what? The Bears don't have that. I mean, we don't really have a backup quarterback that is, helping Caleb.
No.
Tyson Bagent isn't that answer.
No, he's not. And I know Bagent he's kind of a cool story coming out of Division II. He's the only Division II quarterback to ever start an NFL game. But let's be real. Does Bagent really help Caleb Williams? No. He really doesn't. And I know they had Austin Reeves on the on the practice squad. Does he help Caleb Williams? No. What do those two guys know that Caleb Williams doesn't know about playing quarterback? Probably nothing. So I think the Bears next year, I think that would be a smart move. Nothing against Tyson Bagent. I mean, he can obviously run the offense. He won a couple games as a starter when Fields got hurt, but you need a veteran presence in the room. And I think with a guy, this is one of the many things the Bears screwed up with Caleb Williams, but you need a guy who can be in Caleb's ear, be a guy that Caleb can talk to that's not a coach, that he can kind of vent to and, get a different perspective from. And that's what the Bears don't have. I would love to see like a Joe Flacco or a Kirk Cousins type guy on the Bears, just simply as another ear for Caleb. So
I would going to say that too. And I think honestly it'd probably be a good move for Tyson Bagent. Like, he's not going to play as long as Caleb Williams is on that team, except for injury. And he's if he wants to stick around and try to get as a starter as an NFL, then he needs to find a different team.
Yeah, agree, because it's obviously not going to happen here. So, but yeah, I mean, interesting weekend of the playoffs. I mean, I don't want to say it was chalk. I mean, obviously, I don't think many people expected the Rams to beat the Vikings. I don't think a lot of people expected the Commanders to beat the Bucs. I thought the Bucs would handle the Commanders no problem.
Well, they almost did.
Yeah, they almost.
There was a couple of fourth down calls where, they Commanders went for it, and they was like, "Why aren't you kicking that field goal? It's a one-score game." And then they came down and they did it again. They went for fourth down and they got it.
Yeah, I didn't expect Houston to handle the Chargers the way they did. I mean, Jesus Christ, Justin Herbert threw four interceptions after throwing only 3 all regular season long. So that was kind of a crazy game. Justin Herbert had a rough day, very rough day.
Yeah, he did. And so did Jordan Love, which I'm okay with because it's the Packers.
Yeah, let's talk about Jordan Love for a second. How good of a quarterback do you really think he is?
I think he's good, not great, but he's still young. I still think they've got their starter for a little bit there.
I do too, but I think the guy gets way more credit than he deserves because I don't think he is nearly as consistent as he should be.
He's not, but let's be honest, his receivers are not great, and everybody got injured in that game. I don't think there was any healthy Packers after that game on was it Saturday or Sunday, whatever.
Yeah, and but I'm just telling you, until I see some real consistency out of Jordan Love, I'm sorry, I don't think he's in that top tier level of QBs in the NFL, and I don't think. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Bears fan and I hate the Packers or anything like that, but I just don't think he's as good right now as people say he is or think that he is. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm probably think he's a little bit better than that, but I would not put him in the cream of the crop yet. I think he's in that same sort of 2-3 year quarterback. Maybe lump him in with sort of this new crop that's come out this year. It's sort of like, okay, who are these guys? Yeah, he's making a lot of money, so they clearly made an investment in him. He's only 26, so he's got plenty of runway in front of him still. I still think he's a good quarterback. He definitely could use better receivers around him. And the ones that can stay on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, they got Josh Jacobs. That's a nice story. But look, he's good, not great.
He's good, not great. I get you, on the receivers thing with Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, and the third guy escapes my head right now. But yeah, they're not household names. But I don't know. For me, it's just with all the hype that I hear about Jordan Love and how much better he was supposed to be this year, I guess I just didn't see it as often. But, hey, the guy's loaded with talent. There's no doubt about that. But I think he's got a lot of work to do for me. So
I still think he's got room to improve for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
He hasn't hit his ceiling yet, right? I mean, his completion percentage is not great. I think it's like 63% or 64%, something like that. He didn't throw for as many yards, but he doesn't throw many interceptions for his, for how inaccurate that completion percentage tells me. Yeah, he doesn't throw that many interceptions. He didn't throw for a lot of yards this year. I think some of that might have been injuries or whatever it was, and probably also receivers. But he's really only had, I think this was his second year as a starter.
I think so. Yeah, because Rodgers' first year in New York was last year. So, this is his second year as the full-time starter. So,
yeah,
and I know
his rating is 96.7. So this year, which is pretty good.
Hey, I'm not saying he's terrible. I expected more. So,
Well, I mean, when you're paying that much money, I think you're right to expect that jump.
Right.
Yeah. But I think they can also lock him in probably for a cheaper price now and punt on that decision for 3-4 years, right? While this contract runs it out. So it's probably a smart move by Green Bay, knowing they've got a guy who potentially, is going to continue to improve. Let's lock him up now for a little bit. And see what happens over the next 3-4 years if he continues to improve. Then he's going to really break the rank if he does, or he's going to flame out.
He's got a good coach. Green Bay has a solid offensive line. I mean, Green Bay has got a really good history of quarterbacking prior to Love. So I'm sure he'll be fine. I just said I expected more earlier. So,
well, he's a $20 million quarterback this year, and he becomes a $30 million quarterback next year.
That's right.
And it just keeps climbing from there. 36, 42.
Yeah.
His cap hit in 2028 is $74 million.
Hey, the Packers are obviously locked in on him. So, we'll see. We'll see how he continues to develop. So, all right. So obviously the hot topic around here is the big Bears coaching search. Some news around the league. Mike McCarthy decided to leave Dallas. I guess that was a mutual thing.
Did he decide, or was it decided for him?
Well, I think they said it was mutual parting, and Jerry Jones could have fired him right away, and he didn't. He waited a week, and then they mutually parted ways. So obviously something is developing down there that I think was kind of unexpected, but we'll get to that. But McCarthy's out in Dallas. He's actually interviewing in Chicago in person tomorrow already. So, and he's
that doesn't surprise me because Chicago has sent out interview requests to literally everybody on the face of the planet. I have an interview with them tomorrow.
There are 19.
They're not leaving any stone unturned on this one.
No, there are a total of 19 known candidates for this head coaching job here in Chicago, and I believe they've already interviewed 9 of them. That doesn't include whoever they may have talked to today. But what's interesting is they've only interviewed one of them in person. Everybody else has been via Zoom. Now, I know, obviously, there's some rules around coaches that are still in the playoffs that can only be interviewed by Zoom. So when they talk to Ben Johnson and they talk to Aaron Glenn, those guys obviously can only be interviewed by Zoom. But they didn't bring Mike Vrabel into town. I mean, granted, he was hired in New England, and maybe they kind of knew that was going to happen, but they didn't the only other guy they talked to in person was Ron Rivera. They didn't even bring Thomas Brown back into town. How about that? They just, so that tells me that, they're not interested in him. But I mean, Pete Carroll, they did him over Zoom. And then the other 3, Anthony Weaver, Mike Kafka, and Drew Petzing, those guys were all interviewed over Zoom as well. But I think bringing McCarthy actually into town and bringing him in the office to show him Hallis Hall and the world of the Chicago Bears in person, I think it's kind of a big deal.
Well, it's either that or it's just dude doesn't have a job, so yeah, hop on a plane and go do it. He's not busy.
Well, they could have said that to a lot of these guys. They could have said that to Pete
Yeah,
Carroll.
they could have, I guess. I don't know how I feel about McCarthy. I mean, I know he's had success where he's gone, but he didn't really do anything in Dallas. He didn't do anything in Green Bay once Aaron Rodgers left. Like, what's the draw on McCarthy?
Well, that's the talk around town is, okay, he won 12 games, 3 seasons in a row in Dallas. But whenever he got to the playoffs, it all kind of went to shit, right? He did win a Super Bowl in Green Bay, but outside of the one, they never really did anything. He is, I don't want to say solely responsible, but he oversaw the development of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay into the quarterback that he became. He also kind of turned the corner with Dak Prescott in Dallas, and we see what Prescott has become. So he has history with young quarterbacks, right? So there's that. He is an older coach. Does his style of offensive football still play in today's game? That's the big question.
Yeah, I don't know if it does or not. I mean, is he a leader of men? I don't know. He doesn't strike me as this inspiring dude. Yeah, and, able to get professional football players to buy into yet another rebuild of where they're at right now,
Right. Well,
I don't know. I'm not sold on him. I don't really, I still think it's Ben Johnson or bust, but who does he bring in to help Caleb?
Yeah, McCarthy's not my first choice either. I know that was just a big topic today on sports radio. Yes. For me, Ben Johnson is number one, and whoever finishes second is a distant second for me. So we'll see. What makes me nervous is not only did the Raiders fire their head coach, they also fired their GM. So that kind of clears the deck for whoever's going to coach that team to potentially bring in his own guy as a GM. So which brings me to this. What do you think the GM-coach relationship on a football team should be like?
I think it depends on the type of coach and type of GM you've got. Right? If I have a coach and I have and that person has a system, I need specific skill sets for that system, and that's a system that the organization buys into and feels like they can have success with, then I'm going to want a GM that's going to go find those positions for my coach. Okay. So that's kind of how I look at it, because I don't see the GM as a football person. I see the GM more of a talent evaluator and, a negotiator and sort of the business side of the football. Because my assumption is that my head football coach knows football and knows what he needs to be successful.
See, I agree with that 100% because, there's a couple different ways to look at it. It could either be a true partnership in what we just said. Does one guy essentially work for the other? Which would you say is more important to a football team, the coach or the GM? And then the big question is, who has decision power on personnel? And I agree with you. If you're a football coach, I think you better have your hands on what guys you have coming to play for you. Because if you want to run a specific system, you need guys that cater to that system, right? I think a GM and a coach need to be in lockstep 100%. And my fear is that the Bears are going to get a guy, that isn't going to be in 100% lockstep with Ryan Poles, which is why I thought Ryan Poles should have been fired too. And if you're Ben Johnson, do you want to come work for Ryan Poles? Now, the reports all say Ben Johnson was very impressed, with what the Bears presented to him, and the Bears were super impressed with what he presented to them. That's all fine and dandy. But if you're Ben Johnson, do you want to come here and deal with, the pomp and circumstance that is the Chicago Bears and all their stuff? Or do you want to go to Vegas and work with a clean slate, essentially bring your GM with you and start fresh out there.
And have Tom Brady.
For the
ownership group. And you're playing in a brand new stadium. And, you're going to have good weather all the time, too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sold that Poles is still part of Chicago Bears after this coaching search is done. I think if that's a demand that Ben Johnson has to say, look, appreciate everything you guys got here, but here's my concern. I think Poles is gone after that conversation. And they're like, yep,
okay.
All right. If we do that, are you in? And the answer is yes, then yes. I think Poles is gone. But
you think the Bears have the guts to do that? You think they have the guts to do that? Do you think Kevin Warren has the guts to do that? Do you think George McCaskey has the guts to do that?
If they don't, then they get everything that they deserve. He is the chosen one this coaching cycle. And if you said, okay, well, we passed on him because you want to get rid of Ryan Poles, what do you think the fan base and media are going to do to the Chicago Bear organization? Because not like Poles is a very popular figure in Chicago anyway.
No, he's not.
So if it comes down to the reason they pass. Oh, I don't think Kevin Warren is either, but
no.
If the reason that they lose out on, on the perceived chosen one again, Johnson, is because they wouldn't, acquiesce to him bringing his own GM, there will be riots in the streets. People will still go to the games, and that's fine, but they're not going to hear the end of it. And I think the GM and the coach should be peers. They should be at the same level, and there should be a very clear roles or responsibilities between the two. It's absolutely a partnership.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. But I think it needs to be.
Johnson says, "Hey, I like what you've done, Poles. You have brought in some pieces. Here's what I'm going to need. I want to see Ben Johnson interview Ryan Poles. So here's the pieces we need. What do you think? Who are some pieces that you think you can go get or target, or what are you thinking about that? Like that's the conversation that I want to be part of.
I'm sure that obviously you're not going to see a Bears hire until the Lions are done. I don't think that the Bears jump out ahead and hire somebody just because they can't wait for Ben Johnson to finish, just so they get somebody. I
think the only way that happens is if Ben Johnson turns them down sooner.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they probably still want to talk to Kingsbury. They still want to talk to. I heard they want to talk to the head coach at Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, when he's done after the national title game. And don't rule out them talking to Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian either. He's generating some NFL interest too. So they still have some names to get through.
They haven't interviewed anybody from the Savannah Bananas yet, so we got that too.
Yeah, well, they will go through hell and high water to find somebody. I hope they get this right. I really do, because
me, and everybody else in Chicago end.
I know.
We've got a generational, potentially again another generational quarterback. They screwed this up and they've lost another 5 years.
Okay, knowing what we know and knowing what we just talked about, what does your gut tell you?
I think we end up with Ben Johnson.
Really?
Yeah. I think the only competition is with Vegas right now.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's enough there, because I think you've got, if Ben Johnson thinks Caleb Williams is going to be a star, that's the biggest piece of any offense and any team. Mm-hmm. You've got it there. Go get it.
One thing Vegas does not have is the young quarterback.
They do not. But they also can dump anybody they want. And, they got an ownership group that would be willing to spend, to fix the team or whatever it might be. And, it's a rebuilding, a reclamation project down there. But I know the same as the Bears, right? Who has more of the right pieces in place, if that's what he's looking for? Because the other thing that could happen is he may just, decline everything again and just wait for the next route.
That's the thing. That's the other thing that people don't really think about is, hey, Ben Johnson could stay in Detroit for another year. Mm-hmm. If they get close,
he did this before, right?
Yeah, if they get close and say don't win the Super Bowl or they lose in the NFC title game or whatever, Dan Campbell could go to him and be like, hey, man, I can't stop you, but I think if you give this one more year, we win it all. And obviously, Ben Johnson going to another team, odds are he's not going to the Super Bowl next year. But there's it's not like the Lions are showing any signs of slowing down, and you're going to get Hutchinson back at some point. I haven't heard anything if he's going to actually play in the playoffs or not, but you get Hutchinson back on defense for a full season next year, get back to the playoffs with all the same guys, and you got a healthy David Montgomery coming back as well. Assuming everybody stays healthy and they play well, they've got to be the favorite in the NFC next year as well. So we'll see.
I mean, that's a powerful draw too, right? And say, hey, we're close here. I mean, I think that takes a lot of guts if you're willing to pass up a head coach, opportunity. Right? He's still young. He's one of those coaches, like, he's probably aspiring to be a head coach, and he's been pretty judicious in the moves he's made and declining, head coaching positions in the past because of the right fit or whatever it may be.
Right.
But I think ultimately he's going to want that. Is he willing to wait? It's almost like the backup quarterback situation. Right? You don't aspire to be a backup quarterback. Every coach wants to be the head coach until they decide at some point either they don't like it or they've been told that they're not that good.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the premium position, right? I mean, that's, like you said, it's the ultimate goal of any coach, I would think, is to be a head coach of a successful NFL team. So,
can you imagine if he ends up being, the savior of the Chicago Bears franchise? It's almost like, the Cubs, right? 100 years of ineptitude. It's been, 40 years for the Bears?
Oh, man. I mean,
barring the one Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah. I mean, best case scenario, he comes in, the Bears, win 10 or 11 games next year. There's obvious growth out of Caleb Williams. And then 2 or 3 years down the road, they get in the playoffs, get to the Super Bowl and potentially win it. And then he becomes Chicago's Mike Tomlin and coaches here for the next 20 years. I mean, how sweet would that be? I mean, I hate having this conversation, seems like every offseason, about draft position and potential coaching changes and, oh my God, where can we get some help on the offensive line? I mean, when can that stop? I want it to stop. I want to talk about, hey, God, we almost got there this year. Let's, if we could just plug in one more guy on the line, or if we could just get one more receiver, or, if we could have had Brisker healthy all year long, man, we could have made the Super Bowl. That's the conversation I'd rather have. I
want to have a reload conversation, not a restart conversation.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So hopefully we get there. Hopefully they make the right decision, and we can move on with our lives, and then move on to the draft and free agency and all that fun stuff. So,
what do you think about Deion? It sounds like Deion and Jerry Jones have been talking, but how do you see him fitting in the NFL?
Here's my thing with Deion, okay? I think Deion is a great motivator, and I think that's why he does well with kids in college. I don't know how much X's and O's. Obviously, he was a great player, one of the greatest players of all time. Some people have actually labeled him as the greatest individual football player of all time. And that's hard to argue because he did so many things, because he did so many things well. But Deion as a coach, I don't know how much X's and O's strategy he really knows. And I don't know how well his, I guess you could call it shtick, would play with professionals making millions of dollars. I think he would have to have two very, very good coordinators. Obviously, one on offense, one on defense. I don't think he would be Deion Sanders, the defensive genius, or Deion Sanders, the offensive genius, call plays and things like that. I think he's more of just the quote unquote leader of men that we were talking about earlier. I don't know how much actual football the guy teaches in order to coach a game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I'm with you on that. I think he'd either be a really good head coach or a really bad one.
Yes.
And it's either one or the other. There's nothing in between, because I think one of the benefits that he might have going into NFL and, the contracts and player ego, stuff like that, is he was one of those too. He was a diva in the NFL.
Right.
So, diva's going to diva. He knows, I think, probably how to handle that personality type the best.
Well, took the Colorado job and immediately basically told 3/4 of the team, you're not going to be here next year.
Mm-hmm.
He basically cut 3/4 of the team. You can't do that in the NFL. You can't just, I need brand new guys and then go cut them all. And I'm going to just grab, the best of the best off the street and turn my team into a 10-win team in 2 years. That doesn't happen in the NFL. So, you're dealing with, other egos. You're dealing with guys with families. You're dealing with, just guys who have their own egos, as opposed to these kids who just would look at Deion Sanders in awe and be like, holy crap, I'm being coached by Primetime, So I just think it's two different stories, but it would not shock me to see Deion Sanders coach in Dallas next year.
I think it's almost like a foregone conclusion. It would shock me if he's not the head coach there. That's how much I feel like this is almost like a perfect match.
He's publicly
Jerry Jones loves him.
I know. He's public, and it's not like they wouldn't sell out anyway, but Deion sells tickets. I will give you that. But he said the only way he coaches in the NFL is if he's coaching both of his kids. And I don't know where the Cowboys are in draft position. I don't know if they're able to maneuver their way to drafting Shedeur Sanders. I know he's one of the top quarterbacks in the draft, and I know a lot of teams would love to have him. But, they're committed to Dak Prescott. But,
Dak's getting old. He got a big contract this year, but
stranger things have happened. Let's put it that way. And Jerry Jones,
Dallas,
he's
picking 12th. They'd have to make quite the jump to go to. Yeah. Shedeur is probably top 3 pick.
He probably is. He's probably the first or second quarterback off the board. It's him and Cam Ward from Miami. But yeah, probably top 3 between those two and Travis Hunter. So
you got Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants drafting 1, 2, 3. They all need quarterbacks. So
yeah,
you have to assume he's going to be gone by the time you get to Las Vegas at 6, maybe, or Jacksonville or New England. Maybe something happens draft day where one of those guys slides. Maybe it's Shedeur. And they go and mortgage their future.
Maybe
try and get him.
Well, it's been done before where a team has traded their entire draft to move up a certain amount of picks to get a guy in the first round. So
yeah, didn't Ditka do that for Ricky Williams?
Ditka did it for Ricky Williams, and I want to say it was, I forget who had him first. It was either the Vikings or Dallas did it for Herschel Walker.
And you could argue Carolina did it for Bryce Young.
Yeah, you can. So yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. It's been one of the more interesting off seasons, I think. Part of it is because it's, our team is involved with it again from a coaching standpoint. But there's some interesting storylines here.
Yeah, it is. And obviously as teams drop out of the playoffs, we still got a couple rounds to go, but as more teams drop out and more guys become available, for coaching and things like that, it's going to get even more interesting. So, all I know is the spotlight's on Chicago, and they obviously have a lot of work to do because they have a quarterback who could be great, but he needs a lot of help. So we'll see.
Don't fuck it up.
We'll see. Yeah, exactly. So, all right, hey man, I want to ask you something because you've got a connection to this thing, and believe me, I am not getting political with this at all. So don't think that I am. I want to ask you, what do you think about, obviously, the situation out in California? We all know that the city of LA is burning, and I want to know since you went through the hurricane and all the storms and all that stuff in North Carolina, and obviously people in California obviously losing their homes and being evacuated, and there's no sign of this thing slowing down anytime soon. I don't know how much you're paying attention to it, but it's a week in and it's just as bad as it was when it started, from what I understand. So the president has committed to paying, in his words, he said covering 100% of disaster response costs. And he basically told the mayor and the governor to spare no expense. And when I say response costs, I'm talking about like removing debris, temporary shelters, and paying first responders. He committed to paying the bill on that for 180 days. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you got FEMA on the ground in California. I guess my question to you is, how did that compare to the response they gave you guys in the North Carolina area? And what do you think is one situation different from the other? Because I don't know what your situation compared to theirs, and I'm just kind of curious.
It's a good question. I think it depends on which news station you watch as to what you think is going on. The response, and I did see that, and I saw the comments are like, oh, whether they're doing 100% funding for California, blah, 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 and they would do that for you. Now, I mean, there hasn't been an issue with the funding from, FEMA or government, whatever, for Helene. I think so far over almost $1 billion have been sent to recovery. And, look, Asheville has water and power back finally. Sure, I think we had a 56 or 57 day outage of potable water, which is a long time. And there is still a lot of cleanup to be done. Just because,
I can only imagine.
The limelight, there is still months, if not years, of removal of just dead trees, literally all over the place. Bridges that are still down. It's a long investment. So I think the responses have been pretty similar from the government. I don't see any difference in that perspective. But I also think it's you got two different natural disasters. You had the one that hit Helene was widespread. It wasn't just Asheville. It was basically everything in Western North Carolina, parts of South Carolina, just a huge, massive area where, I think I described it as somebody took a baseball bat and hit it, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to cause damage over such a long area. The fires are I don't want to say better or worse, right? From an impact perspective, because, I see the pictures and it's entire communities are gone, razed to the
devastation.
ground.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And look, I get it. Some of these folks are well off, and so a lot of celebrities have lost their homes, and they're probably going to be okay, right? They've got the nest egg and stuff like that, right? But that's still your house, right? I mean, some of these people have lived in the same house for years and years and years, and they've raised families and kids and stuff like that. So there is a sentimental value that can't be replaced, along with that. But I think the federal response has been, what I would expect. I mean, I heard the same things when Helene came through. It was yeah, spare no expense. We rebuild all that stuff, and I'm sure we'll do it, for everything. What bothers me is when I hear things like conditions of payment, which you hear Speaker Johnson on the Republican side saying, well, this money is going to have strings attached and they have to change their approach and blah, blah, blah. But once their states that are on fire or drowning, it doesn't matter. Politics don't matter. So I don't know. I mean, like everything else, it's too political now. And I think it really just matters. Are you watching CNN or are you watching Fox News? And that's going to tell you exactly what your opinion is, basically.
Well, I've just mostly been watching local news and reading, just articles on the internet and stuff. But that's why I wanted to ask you, because obviously you've got firsthand knowledge of what's going on in North Carolina. And I just wanted to make sure, because obviously some people are saying, oh, the attention that North Carolina is getting is going to turn to California, and they're going to leave the folks in North Carolina just, to fend for themselves. Obviously, that's not the case. I would hope that's not the case. And, I
hope not either, because it's not done.
Yeah. Obviously not. And obviously, as a government, let's be real. You're in a no-win situation here. It's obviously you've got two pretty devastating occurrences here. One that happened a few months ago that you're obviously still going to be cleaning up from for a long time. So it take a lot of money, a lot of effort. And now you've got this brand new problem on the West Coast, totally opposite side of the country, that again is going to displace a ton of people. I read today over 12,000 structures gone, 40,000 acres gone, 100,000 people still without power. 88,000 residents still under an evacuation order. I mean, that's just crazy to me. And, it's awful. And I was hoping to hear what you said, because I was hoping to know that the government still remains all in on this. And it sounds like they are, which is great, because you're right. It is total devastation in both cases. I mean, I know, obviously, there weren't houses burnt to the ground in your area, but there were, there's water everywhere and wind everywhere.
And water and landslides and...
Yeah, landslides and trees blowing into houses. And I'm sure there are people in your area that, like California, lost everything. And like you said, they've been living there for, 30, 40, 50 years. They raised kids there. I mean, you've got family heirlooms in there that are now gone, and you can't replace that stuff,
But all my Emmys, they just melted in the fire.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Who's the guy I keep hearing that is what's his name? Spencer Pratt. He's the one that keeps showing up on every news channel. And,
he got nothing else going on. A stupid reality star. What was he? He's like, I don't know, was he Love Island or something like that? I don't know.
He was on one of those MTV, what is it, The Hill? I think his wife was on The Hills or whatever. And I guess his wife put an album out like 15 years ago, back when they were sort of relevant to society. And now, 15 years later, one of her songs is like #1 on the charts because he keeps crying on, all social media and stuff on how they lost everything. I mean, I get it, dude. You lost everything. I feel bad for you, but don't turn it into a money-making opportunity. That's what's irritating to me personally, because it just, after a while,
that's capitalism.
Yeah, I know, but after a while, it just looks fake. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, especially coming from somebody like that, really, it's like, okay, why are you famous for? It's not like you have. I mean, I guess his talent is manipulating media to build himself up as a what is he, influencer or something? I don't know.
Yeah,
personality.
Right.
He's not an actor. He's not an author. I mean, whatever.
No, he's not anything.
I mean,
his wife was an actress or, reality show star or whatever the hell it was. But I mean, you got people out there. And again, this is total, not regular, but I just think of a guy like coach of the Lakers, JJ Redick, lost his house, his family's displaced, yet he's still at every stinking game, doing his job, coaching his team like he's supposed to be doing. I mean, that's crazy to me. If I lost my house, sorry, I would be with my family somewhere, and
that's a tough one though, because I think sometimes, you maybe you lose yourself in your work, or what are you gonna do? Go home to nothing and ashes? Like, what's he supposed to do? Right? Sit around in a hotel and mope? I think everybody's got to figure out what they need to do during that situation. And, maybe it is like, hey, maybe there's this sort of acceptance of, my shit's gone. I don't know when it's going to be safe, if ever, to go back there, because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be climate refugees off of this.
Oh, for sure.
Based on, California wildfires. And, it's always been an issue, but, this is, for whatever reason, this one kind of hit in a more populated area. So I don't know.
There's so many theories on why this happened, and was it natural? Was it failure of prevention?
Well, there's been power line stuff, which is I don't want to say typically the cause, because there's a lot of power line issues in California. That was the last big one. Was like PG&E or something like that. Power line. They think this one was that as well, but in addition to that, there were also arson.
I have heard
too. So
I have heard some of that, and I mean, it's just a shame that while they're fighting these fires, they've also arrested people for arson and burglary and vandalism and looting
and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's like the last thing. You shouldn't have to assign a security force to an area that's burning to the ground. It's sad.
Shouldn't have to, but we're humans, and that's what we do.
Yeah,
it's every man for themselves, or woman, or whatever it is, right? And they're like, you see and hear this out of almost every natural disaster or major sort of event, right? There's looting. Yeah. There's, whatever, happening.
People,
same thing happened in Helene, people doing stupid stuff. And, you hope the law catches up with them and karma, maybe pays them a visit. But it's still, I don't think it's any different, other than population differences, right? So,
Sure.
LA is much more populous, for example, than the Asheville area. So, of course, there are going to be more instances of knuckleheads, which means there's going to be more instances overall. So it may seem like it's more widespread. Well, yeah, because there's more people. I was reading about gun violence yesterday, kind of make a segue, and everybody's like, oh, if you're in the city, you're going to get shot and blah, blah, blah. And, the worst crime is Chicago, who has a gun violence problem. And yes, that is absolutely true, right? There's a gun violence problem. But statistically, you're more likely to get shot in the South in rural areas than you are per capita than you are in the city of Chicago, which is mind-blowing if you think about it. It's like, okay, you just kind of assume how bad what you've heard in the media and other things. Like, yeah, Chicago's got problems, but you're telling me I'm more likely to get shot, driving around, in the Southeast,
right?
And farms and stuff like that. Having lived here now, yeah, I could see that. I mean,
well, probably, and I think you tell me, but I think more people in those areas are carrying a gun than
they are, and they're much
in
more
Chicago.
Yeah. I think per capita, right? I think it's
exactly.
More
That's
people
what I mean.
are armed percentage of the population than there are in Chicago.
Right.
Yes, Chicago's gun violence problem for sure, but we're not going to do anything. We're not going to solve gun violence on the FOJ show.
No,
regardless of what it is.
That's a different thing.
The statistics are there. But
it's just sad to watch. I have extended family that live not far from there, and luckily nothing has affected them yet, as far as I know. But it's weird. I talked to a guy for my work, just a guy in our customer service department who was actually working out of his home in San Diego, and he apologized to me for having a crackly voice. And I'm like, oh, you not feeling good? And he's like, no, it's the air quality here. I said, oh, where are you?
Tires.
And he said, San Diego. And I said, oh my God. I go, that's made its way all the way down there. And he said, yeah. He goes, we can see the smoke all the way down here, and you go outside, you can smell it, you can breathe it. And, now I guess even all the way down to the California-Mexican border, there are warnings there that, the potential for this could spread all the way down there. So it's awful, man.
You can see it from space. If you can see a natural disaster from space, an active one, okay, that's a big disaster.
Yeah, no kidding.
My wife's side of the family is all out that area. They're in the San Diego area. My in-laws, they used to live up in Santa Rosa, which is a little bit north of San Francisco, and they were constantly under threat of fires. And can you imagine having to live where you've got a go bag at any given point? You may have to evacuate at a moment's notice because of a fire, and that's your life.
Yeah.
No. And then as you get older, it becomes more difficult to kind of get around. So, they actually moved to North Carolina for a year by us. Ended up going back to California. Now they're south of San Jose a little bit, so they're kind of closer to the ocean. But it's a real thing out there for sure, and it's been. I think it's something that I hate to say it, but you've kind of grown up with it and kind of lived through it. This one, I guess, it's just more worse. It's worse because of the population center that it's hitting.
Right. I mean, my dad's from that area, and I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, yeah, I mean, you live with this. This is a real thing that, it's just part of...
Like earthquakes.
It's part of
the lifestyle
life out there, and, you kind of... It's the trade-off,
when
right?
in Chicago, right? It's going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just sad because that part of the country, even though it's expensive as shit, it's beautiful out there. I mean, I guess it's what you trade for... it's what you trade for... sunny and 75 or 80 basically every day. I mean, I read today, they haven't had any measurable rain in that area for 254 days, which is part of the problem because everything is so, because everything is so dry. Yeah. That's why, what do they call them? The embers? It just hits something and boom, it just goes up in flames like that because it's so dry out there. So, it's sad. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's
fires,
sad.
Drought, earthquake.
Yeah. Well,
there's a trade-off no matter where you live.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard, there's some good stories out of this too. I understand. What is it? Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers and his wife have donated like $300,000 to relief efforts. I heard the band Metallica, because they're from San Francisco, donated $500,000 to relief efforts. So, you hear stories like that. It's like sometimes when tragedy strikes, you get the very best out of people, right? So hopefully we hear more of that kind of thing as opposed to looting and, arson and adding to the problem and things like that. So, and I guess, you got fire personnel from all over the place getting in, and also from Canada and from Mexico trying to help out. So that's good. And hopefully, with the change in administration that's going to happen here in another week, hopefully those efforts continue, so we'll see.
Yes, but hopefully the politicization of all that support, just knock it off.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So we'll see. So, well, I'm glad to hear your perspective on that, because I was hoping that nothing as far as the government's role in your guys' recovery had changed, and it sounds like it has not. So that's good.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of it's still cleanup and, housing. Most of the issues that are in our area, for example, are more state government and local government inflicted. Like the federal government actually moved really quick. A lot of it is bogged down in like local politics. And so freeing up funding and freeing up like zoning ordinances, like little stupid stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, the federal government can come in, but they're still bound to the same laws as anyone else.
Right.
So if if the local government says, well, we can't, you can't put anything in there because that land is zoned for this, but FEMA wants to, has like 80 trailers that they want to put people in, so they're not homeless. Like that's kind of stuff that has to get worked out. So a lot of this is going to come down to not so much the federal government, which will play a massive role right in the rebuilding efforts and covering costs, but in the local government actually getting rid of the bureaucracy there and the red tape so that people can get, hopefully back to normal sooner rather than later.
Well, I think that's how it should be. I mean, the local government should kind of take the lead on that kind of thing and use the federal government as like a support system, because the local government is there on the ground every day. It's like, agencies like FEMA or whoever else, the Red Cross, they should just kind of be there to support, be like, hey, outside of our wallets, what else do you need from us? You tell us where to go and kind of handle it that way.
Here's the resources. We've got an infrastructure.
Yeah.
FEMA is a well-run organization. They were very efficient, when they were here, and they still are here. And Red Cross is still here, right? There's still a station literally 1 mile from our house where you can go get a shower, do your laundry, all that stuff for people who still, 3 months, 4 months later, may still be affected. So there's still a presence, but it's the local governments that typically need to get out of the way. Sure. And then, just ignore all the stupid political grandstanding that gets happen at the federal level. FEMA's doing their job. As long as people stay out of their way, they know what they're doing.
Good. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, that's good. And, to the 20 people that listen to this podcast on a weekly basis.
20? We grew.
Yeah. If any of you have relatives or things like that going on, I wish them all the best, because, it's absolutely horrible
because it's everyone handles that trauma differently, and it is traumatic, right? I get it. It's the West Coast elite, leftist, socialists, blah blah blah.
Yeah, but
I get it, right?
They're still people.
They're still
people. They're still human. They've got emotions. They've got lives. They've got whatever they can hang on to nowadays. Sounds like a lot of them don't have a whole lot. So it's
Well, yeah. And it's not just the elites that have been affected, through this. There's a lot of people who are not well off, right? All the workers in the area, stuff like that.
That's what a lot of people, I think, tend to forget, because what you see on TV is, Paris Hilton lost her home, or, you see Ashton Kutcher out there fighting a fire with his garden hose and things like that. You don't see Joe Schmo, the garbage man, who, trying to defend his house or things like that. They're definitely out there. So,
yeah, for every one of those celebrities, there's probably 1,000 normal people, right?
Yeah,
who are
100%.
just trying to like anyone else, and they're going to
100%.
So, you get things like the World Kitchen, which they were here, which is great. They came in, set up shop, and now they've, set up shop there, which is great to get meals and stuff like that. So there is, look for the best in people, and you'll tend to find more of those than the negatives, especially in situations like this.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. So cool, brother.
I feel like there should be like a rainbow and be like, the more you know, and like that NBC thing. On a feel good Tuesday or something like that.
On a feel good Tuesday, yes. Yeah. The more you know. Yeah, the NBC, and I forget what was the G.I. Joe.
Knowing is half the battle.
Knowing is half the battle. That's what it was. That's right.
Yep.
Oh, too funny. Too funny.
Yeah. You got to go to baseball practice, don't you?
I do have to go to practice. I coach a 13U team, which I'm sure I'll have some stories about as we move along because the two guys that I coach with are very entertaining for many reasons. But real quick, before we take off, I want to hit the music that you gave me and see what you think. Okay, LSD. Listen to Genius and Thunderclouds. Okay, I thought Genius reminded me a lot of Rihanna.
Yeah.
And Thunderclouds, I had a little bit of Rihanna / Bruno Mars out of that one. Little different.
Now, which version of Genius did you listen to? Did you listen to, I guess, the album version, or did you listen to the version with Lil Wayne?
It was not the one with Lil Wayne.
They're very different songs with the two. Okay.
Okay. It was
so
not
if you go back
the
to
Lil
that
Wayne
album. The
version.
last track is Genius, but with Lil Wayne instead.
Okay. I will.
And it's a different song. I think it's just as good, but it's a different song.
I will give that a spin. A little different. I'll admit it was, like you said, a little poppy compared to what I'm used to. But, it'll give me, it might take me a few listens, but I'll stick with it.
There's some catchy stuff in there. You'll find yourself humming a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Massive Attack. I told you that I had heard of them before. Okay, I have 6 of them for you that they remind me of. Little Jane's Addiction, 9 Inch Nails.
Jane's Addiction.
Yeah, Jane's Addiction, 9 Inch Nails.
Yep.
The Clash, Gorillaz, Garbage, and Bjork. That's what I get out of Massive Attack.
Okay. Yeah, I think Bjork is a good one. Interesting about the Clash. I guess it depends on what tracks did you listen to. They're a very.
It was the Mezzanine album, and I think I got through the first. I think I got through the first 3 songs, and what I noticed about it is they're very different. Each song is pretty different.
They are, and they evolve over time too. Yeah, but I think the first 3 tracks on Mezzanine are really good. So
yeah, no, I actually enjoyed it because the 6 musicians that I mentioned, I like them all. So and then the last one, the Orb, Adventures Beyond the Ultra World.
Yeah.
Okay. Very, very video game-ish to me. Okay.
Yep.
And I've got kind of a wide array here, so stick with me. Pink Floyd, White Zombie, Prince.
White Zombie.
Yes. Okay. Prince and Alice Cooper. Now, White Zombie, second album, where they had a little more computer, a little more, just a little more computer-generated video game sounding stuff, like, Astro Creep, Electric Head, that kind of thing.
Okay. You're talking about, they had a few different albums. You're talking about Astro Creep 2000, the one from 96 with like,
yeah.
What was the song on that one?
The More Human Than Human was the big single off that one.
Yeah.
So just a lot of that, but
that's
a
interesting.
But a little bit of Prince, and the 2 big ones for me were Prince and Big Floyd. So
okay, so now that's interesting because I wonder now if your points of reference are because you're been so heavily invested in rock for so many years, and you're trying to relate it back to those rock artists.
That's very possible.
And it's interesting to hear those parallels. That's interesting. I can see a little bit of the zombie stuff with some of the electronic stuff that they do.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
but all 3 of them were enjoyable. I will definitely listen to them more, so to speak. So
good.
So
I'm glad you enjoyed them. Do you want more recommendations, or you want to take a break?
Always. Let me get a pen. Go ahead.
Let's go with another electronic music one. Castlevania, like LE and then Castle and then Vania, like Castlevania, the video game.
Oh my God, there's a blast from the past.
Yeah.
Castlevania, okay.
Castlevania, another EDM one. He's done a lot of like John Wick style music.
Okay.
So if you're watching like a John Wick movie and you hear like this pumping like EDM background while, John Wick is busting heads, it's probably a Castlevania song.
Okay.
And then for something completely different, let's go with a French band, kind of a poppy rock band called Shaka Ponk. SHAKAPONK. Shaka
PONK.
And specifically 2 songs. I'm Picky and My Name is Sting.
I'm Picky and My Name is Sting. Got it. All right.
And we're going to go back to, I want to say they were around 2011 or so and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, those two songs, and this is another one of those bands where it's like a couple of really good songs I like and really don't know the rest of their catalog. So those were the 2 of them. Well, I'm calling out those specifically.
All right,
but
cool.
I think those 2 songs are super catchy. And again, kind of poppy, not so much rock, but maybe more poppy from like a style perspective.
All right, man. I will check those 2 out. Awesome.
Yeah,
I like it.
And you can say, hey, I listened to this French band, right? And you'll be the hit at all your posh Plainfield parties.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I am amongst Plainfield's elite, if you know what I'm saying. All right, so Castlevania, and Shaka Ponk. All right.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah. And I want to hear about the baseball stuff. I want to hear a scouting report on each player as if you were critiquing them for the big leagues.
Okay. Well, for the record, I'm still getting
feelings.
Yeah. Well, for the record, I'm still trying to get to know all their names. But as soon as I do that,
when the time is right, I want to hear your analysis of the team and the scouting report on each player.
Definitely.
You can use fake names or whatever, right? We don't want to get people in trouble, but I want to hear.
No, we will definitely do that. No, I miss coaching baseball a ton. I had so much fun with my kids, and now that they're old and into off college and all that kind of stuff, I'm kind of getting back into it at the request of a buddy of mine, and I could tell it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, we'll definitely get into that. I will tell you, I am getting requests to have people come on this podcast and talk different stuff. So as soon as
come on, be a friend of Jay.
Yeah, we will be getting some friends of Jay on here. I've got requests to talk college football. I've got a guy dying to come on to talk Bears. I got another guy who wants to talk Bears and just NFL in general. So yeah,
I got one of my friends, Jim. We got to get him on. He's a big baseball fan, and I have nothing to contribute to those conversations. So like, all right, you got to talk to Jason.
Absolutely,
you guys can just talk, and I'll just kind of sit there. Yeah,
absolutely. Is that the guy you do your other podcast with, or I would love it. I would love it. That'd be awesome. Yeah, get it. Hey, get him for next week. We'll do it.
Yeah, think about what we're doing. The thing is, we do the same thing, so the travel schedule is sometimes difficult between the 2 of us. But yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I think I know Justin would love to make a return, so he would love to come back.
He was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed having him on.
I know we talk a lot of football, but that's just because that's what's on our mind right now.
Yeah,
I assure you, fans of FOJ show, that we are not just football.
No. We are football. We are all things to all people. So yeah,
and we don't even have to agree as long as we can have a civil, respectful conversation.
Absolutely, because in the end, we're all friends of Jay.
Yeah, and everybody knows I'm right, so that's all that really matters.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. See, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Go do your baseball.
Yeah. Go freeze your ass off in Ottawa, and even though it's colder here than it is there, and enjoy the rest of your time.
All right, man. I'll talk to you in a couple of days.
All right, bro. Safe travels.
See ya.
See ya.